Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Clark, Guide to the Right Path. And so the next few weeks, I'm going to talk about some of my work. And the first one I'm going to talk about is one of the things I do in a lot of my sessions with a lot of people is a thing called future life progression. So what is that? Well, we all hear about with hypnosis or we hear about therapy, it's about sorting out who the person is, what they're dealing with. So most people talk about living the present. And most things in hypnotherapy, you deal with the past. And then you would actually help the present, and then you hope the client would then go on to have a better future. But what most people seem to forget is that with a lot of people, when they have had so much trauma, is they don't see a positive future. So most people will say in the past, I've had this happen, I've had this happen. And then when you get them over that, reframe that, you change it. Now, in the holistic movement, most people would go to a medium to get their guides, or they go and get these things, tarot cards, and they will get a reading from someone. So they will do a reading with a person, somebody with a bowl, a crystal bowl, something like this. Or, they'll do this and they'll be dressed in the to the nines, and then they'll come up with all these different great ideas of like what they're dealing with now, what the present is, what the future will be in 6 months' time or a year's time. But the one thing people don't seem to do is about exploring the possibility with future life progression. And what is this? So this is about designing your future self, the power of forward visioning. So what is this? Okay, so for example, if people could believe you can go in hypnosis and you can go and see the past in people's heads while they're in trance or into the subconscious, why does nobody really talk about the idea of we can go in the subconscious and see our future? Because the future for most people is sometimes they feel it's unattainable, unreal, whatever that is. So let's have a look at that. Future life progression, the branding idea of that. So I was taught how to do future life progression because I've done past life progression with clients. I have done present life work when I get through people's traumas. But the now adding that future life progression, future life coaching to clients' programs in the ARC program, the Life Empowerment Coaching Program, connection even to the ancestors as well. All this, and even with past aggression, sometimes seeing the future when actually you've got over them things. So, for example, if I'm in a hypnotherapy session, if someone has a fear of public speaking, my thing is once I've got them over that worry, what that is, you want to show them in the present, but you also want to show them in the future doing public speaking. So when you're showing them in the future in the hypnotherapy, in the mind of the hypnotherapy client, why wouldn't you just, instead of showing them just that, would you show them other things they can do? So when we work in the past or we work as a hypnotherapist, we can always go to a younger version of ourselves. We can go to whoever has caused our trauma and talk to them, work with them, change them, how they've affected us. So in the future, what would we do? Well, we would do visualizing our future self is actually going to our future self. Now, my future self could have long hair, could have no hair, like I've got now. Could be that I'm doing something, I've got a school teaching people how to be hypnotherapists or spiritual. I don't, I've done this work and I'm not going to go into that too much detail of what I see my future as. But what I can say is this: the designing your future self is about getting that information. And as what I do is one of my things I do is always show people their future self. Now, most people usually only want to see 1, 2 years ahead, but I have shown people 5 years ahead and even as far as 10 years ahead. I never go any more than that because I do think that can be quite frightening for people. And you've got to sort of ground it in reality. Because the one thing is, when you show people their future, sometimes then they will actually destabilize it by trying to self-sabotage. And especially if you haven't dealt with that issue in their present or their past about their constant self-sabotage, you would actually be dangerous to do that future work. So the idea is you've got to make sure you've dealt with all the work of the past, which has helped them trigger or cause them problems in the present and the past, and then show them the future. So you've got to be very sensible in how you use this. Now, the one thing is with future life progression is the progression of you is about how you can see yourself and how do you get there. So when you're asking your future self, like when you ask your past self about things, you ask your future self, how do I get there? They give you a guide. They give you a guidance of what you need to do to get there. Now, sometimes for people that seems quite funny because they think, well, how am I going to get there? That's not where I am now, and I don't see that. But this is where this balances people's concept of time, reality, quantum physics, and so forth. And the visioning the future self progression is incredibly important because once you're visualizing what you can see in the future, then you create a mind map, you create a mood board, you create all these things of how you're going to attain that. How are you going to get there? And giving a plan for people to actually follow is useful. Now, some people will go, oh, I go with the flow, but having a plan also mixing with that is very useful. So the idea, if I was in a session with a client, yes, they've dealt with all their past issues, they've dealt with all their trauma, and then to show them their future. Most people, if they're a mother or a father, they want to see their kids do well. If they also want to see their future self, like if they want to want to better their voice, want to do public speaking. I'm giving public speaking, but also not having the trauma to go into future relationships, not having the trauma of what they've dealt with their family they've got, or they want to create a new family with someone else, but they don't know how that's going to happen. These things are incredibly important because what they do is they set up benchmarks of where people want to work. Now, getting the future self, your future self will also be usually very positive because it's seen that the hard work they've done is they've achieved that from what they knew they were. So what the idea is to bring that energy from the future self and bring it to the present to then inspire you or whoever the client is to then look at the future. Now, even with this background here, you can see this is what some people think of the future: flying cars, big tall buildings, space age type of ideas. And that's not all what the future is. The future is also about the idea of the integration of sacrificing the ego, the use of technology and embracing it. And a lot of my work with future life progression is actually getting people to accept that they do need to train with AI, train how to use it to then improve the work they're in because they are actually afraid of losing their work. See, the future could be very scary if you allow it. So the idea is this actually helps you to create control within a framework to actually help you develop that skills to then actually progress. So if I did this as a session, I would never do it as a one session. It would always be in part with a program. So in the programs, it'd be within the life empowerment coaching, which I'm talking in 2 weeks' time. It would be the ARC program, which I'm talking to in 3 weeks' time, or just actually understanding of general helping with that. So the other reason is also I think future life progression is very useful is with a tarot reading, you only just see the reading and the person is verbally speaking about it. So it's auditory and a bit of visual. But with future life progression, you actually have the ergonomics, you have the feel and being in that moment that you feel, you see, your senses and heightens that. So it makes it's more believable. It then goes into the way the body thinks, works, progresses, and so forth. So until next time, I shall speak to you soon. And if you are interested in future life progression, please book a free discovery call and I can explain how this works within the programs you'll be doing, within the work you need to do with yourself. And that will be at richclark.net. Also, if you wish to, you can email me at info@richclark.net and then I can give you some more information how that works. So until next time, I shall speak to you soon.